Hello, and thank you for joining us. On behalf of Palo Alto Networks, Presidio Federal, and Carahsoft, I would like to welcome you to today's virtual event, Next Generation Firewall, Capture the Flag.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Burl Hagwood. I'm a Senior Account Manager for Presidio Federal. I'm here with my colleague, Clark Anderson, who is our Security Solutions Architect. Who is Presidio Federal? We're a mid-tier integrator. Everybody know what that is? Yes. Well, my role at Presidio is to help you. So please raise your hand for my help anytime after this presentation, and I will continue to offer mine. Presidio has been supporting the federal government's IT modernization journey for over 30 years. My Presidio Federal Solution Architect and Delivery teams have reached back into the resources of our $6 billion parent company, Presidio Network Solutions. Presidio has 11 globally recognized and award-winning national practices that align with our core federal IT and cloud solutions. Why Presidio Federal? Our teams can combine cutting-edge commercial best practices with our federal experience and best practices. That combination allows us to deliver innovative solutions to help our government customers save time, money, and keeps them focused on achieving their missions. If our OEM partners can't show me cheaper, better, faster, and more secure, I won't show you. Palo Alto has been one of those trusted partners that helps us show customers return on investment and an accelerated time to value. Why do customers choose us? We have been a trusted advisor for 30 years in 18 agencies or DoD divisions, civilian intelligence agencies included. So customers share their challenges. A true public-private partnership that shares problems, solutions, and outcomes, because that creates proven and repeatable solutions. But I can't do my job if you don't share your challenges. I'm here to support your market research and solution evaluation by leveraging our team's experience and resources that also include the support of OEM partners like Palo Alto and their world-class subject matter experts. So why do our customers choose and keep us? Well, it's all about the people. People like my colleague, Clark Anderson. Clark?
Thanks, Burl. I'm Clark Anderson, Security Solutions Architect for Presidio Federal. And Burl, you're right. Designing for our customers is a team effort. Looking at our customers' needs from the perspective of multiple disciplines on the solutions architect team, instead of just a single specialty like mine in security, allows Presidio Federal the ability to create comprehensive solutions addressing the customers' their entire enterprise need. Earlier this week, for example, our team met with a federal customer who had a requirement to encrypt large traffic flows in a multi-cloud environment. As the cybersecurity architect, I proposed solutions to meet these types of zero trust model requirements. For example, incorporating Palo Alto next generation firewalls into the solution. But because of the cloud and data center expertise on our team, we were able to foresee how applying encryption in a multi-vendor cloud network would create significant transportation bottlenecks between the clouds. We were able to propose a cloud-to-cloud transport solution to the firewalls that would overcome encryption limitations and meet the customer's very high volume throughput requirements. This Presidio Federal multidiscipline approach to solution design uniquely enables us to propose the best and most comprehensive vendor solutions for our customers' entire enterprise. And just as important, our team not only proposes solutions, but Presidio Federal provides the engineering support to fully implement your solutions and provide ongoing support if desired. Our solution architect team members each have over 20 years of experience in designing, engineering, implementing, and delivering best-in-class solutions in all areas of enterprise IT. These years of experience enables us to not only know the best new capabilities, but how to integrate modern solutions into the legacy enterprise environments of our customers. Our team members most likely led the stand-up of these legacy systems years ago. Let us take a look at your challenges from our team's multiple perspectives. Thank you. And Jeff, let's get on to capture the flag.
Data is everywhere, right? And the nearer you can get to a next generation firewall, the better off you are. Simply because of the way we can secure you, right, in terms of the information that you glean from the internet. It's not always good, right? So we have a very sophisticated way of blocking malware and looking at advanced threat and looking at, emerging and real threat. And we're going to talk about that. The other thing that we do with our next generation firewall is we will often replace a bunch of technology. So on average, it's something like 73 different tools in an enterprise environment. When we start talking about the firewall, it can do a whole lot more than what you might be traditionally used to. And it does it in a different way. So we have one next generation firewall, right? It comes in a variety of things, right? It comes in a VM, comes in a hardware appliance, comes in a container, right? It also comes in the form of a cloud, right? So I can put a VM in the cloud. And we have Big Iron for data centers, and we have the containers and the VMs for your application development side. So we also have things like IoT, right? So that is a subscription that we put on the next generation firewall. And now we're capable of discovering your IoT and creating policy around it. Why is all that sort of a big deal? Because things are getting more sophisticated every time. So this need for microsegmentation is real, right? To stop that lateral movement, right? The idea that we can, before you connect to a malicious URL, we can determine the risk of that URL and block it in real time. And we'll talk about that later. But all of this continued effort around our next generation firewall is intended to increase visibility, increase safety, and reduce risk, and where and whenever possible, stop it in its tracks, right? So we don't have to, right? There's security engineers are in such demand now that it's hard to fill them. One of the ways you can lessen that burden is if you reduce the numbers of tools in your stack, right? So if you're using a CASB and a web proxy, and you have firewalls that are doing site-to-site VPNs, and you've got MPLS services, and you've got remote access, right? That's either coming into a VPN concentrator or maybe through a SWIG or something like that, right? No. You don't need all those tools. our next generation firewall, right? It has, when we'll talk about a variety of cloud delivered subscriptions, right? VPN is one of them. We call it Global Protect, right? That's for your mobiles, right? And your branches, right? We have firewalls that come in all different sizes, right? For headquarters, for data centers. We have a version of this that comes in the form of a SaaS, as a security provided, right? And we are from the ground up a discovery company. So yeah, we see every bit of SaaS that goes in and out of that your users are reaching out to. So yeah, you don't need a CASB. We can provide that as a service, right? You don't need a URL filtering device, an antivirus device, that whole big giant security stack. We offer it as part of the next generation firewall or delivered as a service. The other big thing about our next generation firewall is we check everything. In other words, we send all the traffic through all the security gates at the same time. It's called a single pass architecture, right? We do it all at once and everything gets checked. There's no writing policies to get around certain things and such. Right? So let's talk about some use cases. Oh, look, my shirt turned orange because the screen's so red. So data center and hybrid cloud. So one thing that you have to remember is that Panorama manages it all. And it looks identical to the management interface on a single firewall. So once you learn it, it's an extension to everywhere. These subscriptions are 4 of the cloud delivered subscriptions that I was talking about. So let's talk about them first. So this is actually now called Advanced Threat Protection. That takes and is what is known, right? Now, what's advanced about it is that anything with Cobalt Strike will recognize in real time, right? A lot of the things that used to take scanning in real time, right? Like to look into a portable executable or to look into a DLL, a lot of that we can do in line now. So real game changer around threat prevention. URL filtering, we now call it advanced URL filtering. So wildfire is where we turn unknown threat into known threat, right? So we have something like 85,000 customers that are sending their documents and their flows are going through and into wildfire. They're sending us all these URLs, right? They've been doing that for so long that we have just this tremendous wealth of information that allows us to automate the other subscriptions. DNS is a subscription that you would expect for DNS security. There's about 12 different, it does DNS exfiltration, dynamic library, DNA, DGAs. There's just a whole bunch, right? We could go on for a while just about the DNS, but that provides DNS security. Now, inside the data center, what we're going to do is we're going to have a physical appliance, right? And VMs to segment the data center first and then to provide micro segmentation. This CN series goes into your container space. So when your container app reaches out to GitHub and pulls back a virus, this threat prevention license will stop that. Right? And that goes all the way down and proliferates through your environment and goes out into your clouds, because we have clouds for the VM series, right? Specific clouds, we're all down here. Right? Here are all the different stacks that we support. Yeah, so, right, preventing, the only way you can prevent lateral movement is through microsegmentation. And it's the use of that VM series and the orchestration across hypervisors that provides that. Campus, so, right, old world, right? You had a box that looked like a firewall, a proxy, a URL, an AV. I don't even know what IM is. Data loss prevention, IPS. So you had all these different boxes lined up and created this gigantic service chain. And what we do is we just put the firewall in with all the security subscriptions that you need, with all the automation that you need to keep this up and running and in best practice. So that's another thing that we can offer is Presidio upon delivering this device, have them come in, do a best practice check, and make sure that you're staying ahead of the curve, because that curve is a hockey stick and it's not pointing in our direction, unfortunately. So yeah, we're protecting campuses all over the world. So branch and retail. So this brings up an interesting one. So you can certainly put, a physical appliance, we make little ones, right? Little panelized devices. You put one at every store, manage it, work using Panorama. A lot of people do it. We've got tons of customers that do it in retail. There's an SD-WAN license that you can get even and put on that little box and have an SD-WAN capability. So that's another one of these subscriptions up here. It's Global Protect, that's for remote access. And we've already talked about those. But here's this thing called Prisma Access. So what that is that is the PanOS stack that you're going to be messing around with here in a little bit, globalized. So we have 140 POPs in AWS and GCP that are all tied together with ultra high fiber, and customers and their branches can connect to that, apply the appropriate security subscription for the use case, and now you've got yourself a global security fabric. And that's fundamentally how we get to all these different things, right? Getting up to the internet, providing access to a data center. Yeah, we've got a bunch of stories. So mobile users. Now this is an interesting one because the pandemic did something, right? It did a lot of things, but one thing it did do was cause people's VPNs to become stretched, to say the least, right? Most organizations, well, a lot of organizations, right? They had some sort of remote work thing, and we used to scare the heck out of them and say, you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared. Well, nobody was prepared for something like that. Nobody. And this type of VPN, though, is very, very, very secure, and it's going through this next generation firewall, right? So what ended up happening, right? You just had to add more of these, add more bandwidth. On this side, this is, right, that next generation firewall, right, with all of its capabilities globalized. So when everybody went home, the network scaled with them because we use all the native scaling tools. So yeah, so these are the recommended subscriptions for that sort of VPN mobile use case. Sorry. Yeah. We can go into different use cases. 5G. So, yeah, 5G is going to provide so much more access, right? And that access will need to be scrubbed because, right, I got a whole bunch of IoT devices around my house. All of that is streaming out of something, right? And it could very well be onto a 5G network. And your phone, that Android phone, that is the most toxic work surface of all. So if you got an Android phone, make sure you have very good software on it. So with our methodology, right, we're always looking at the app, and we're always looking at layer 7, and we're always looking for that threat, and we're always, trying to direct you away from malicious websites. And most of that is through automation, and automation is what's going to win the day. And yeah, that firewall, right, is NFV ready, meaning that it's network function virtualization ready. You put that in, you can even put it in as a single wire, right, and have all that protection. So I won't go read all the content. So one of the critical things that we do really well is this single pass inspection and detection, meaning that instead of treating that stack, that UTM stack, as a series of hurdles, we line the hurdles up and jump over them all at once every time, right? So what that fundamentally does is makes the performance very predictable, right? The other thing that we do really well is decryption. All of our boxes have some sort of decryption acceleration in them. The Prisma Cloud, or the Prisma Access version, is the decryption is unlimited because, right, it's a cloud resource. So we can get very granular on our decryption. That allows us to see the threat inside, because almost everything is decrypted. Right? The other thing that we do really well is reporting. So our logging is extensive. I can show you some. There'll be some questions in the game where we look at the logs. So yeah, we're moving all over the place, right? We're accessing things as services. We're, accessing resources in the public cloud. So, right, when you're in your office, right, you're going through one of those next generation firewalls with all those things. When you are in a cafe, you could be VPNing in and then do a U-turn and go and have all this SaaS protection. We'll talk about SaaS protection in a minute. Or, right, you connect directly to Prisma Access, and by default, there is no access except for if policy allows it, and then you have access to your SaaS services. So this is actually kind of interesting, right? So we are really good at this. So what we can do is we can recognize whether or not a website is in fact what it says it is, right? By looking at the pixelation of the website, combining it with other attributes, we can figure out whether or not that is in fact a legitimate website. The other thing we can do is we can look at a website and see the traffic coming back from it as well. So we have a whole team called Unit 42, and they have invested a ton of time in figuring out how to find this stuff. So, right, typical thing, right? It's not that hard now to buy location data, and through that location data, determine who you are. So we can create and craft an email that is very specific, that you're really going to want to click on. And that sets off the fish, right? Well, the next generation firewall is not going to allow you to enter your credentials outside of your domain. If you set up credential phishing or credential theft protection properly, we use a Bloom filter. It's a filter that looks for the absence of something, and we will be able to tell that you've entered your password somewhere else. I've done it myself. Shortly after I came here, I was registering for our SKO, and the reg page looked like a Palo Alto page. So I entered my Palo Alto credentials, and a big thing came up and said, "You've been phished. You have to go change your password." So the other thing would be if somebody stole your token, right? Or, right, he finds it. So the attacker tries to authenticate himself as you, and you say, you look at your Octaphone or whatever, and you go, "No, that's not me," right? So the attacker's not going to gain access, but it's all recorded, right? So, oh, sorry, I didn't see you. So it's all recorded. Now we know that Jeff somehow had his credentials stolen. So SAS. So this is actually something that replaces both a CASB and a SWG, Secure Web Gateway. And we would need to add one more subscription to it. But essentially what we can do is so for every user, right, we identify who he is, and based on who he is and what he has, that sets up his least privilege for zero trust, right? So there's going to be a set of applications that he is able to use, a set that we tolerate. So that might be a set like, okay, Jeff, I get it. You need to have your little box account so that you can transact with a very specific partner, right? And there's no getting around it. But what you can do is you can monitor Jeff for DLP, monitor that box for DLP, decrypt it all the time. You can even say, Jeff, you know what? No. You can put stuff in there. You can put stuff in there, but you can't bring anything down. No. But if you decide, yeah, Jeff, you can put stuff up there and you can bring it down, it's going to come through the next generation firewall and be processed for malware, threat, and everything, right? Now, unsanctioned, you would think, well, isn't that everything else? Well, not so fast. Unsanctioned, so SAS explodes. I mean, it really does, right? There's, depending on who you believe, there's 40,000 to 150,000 SaaS applications out there. Yeah, so there are ones you are going to want to specifically deny just because of their risk, right? So this is our ACC. Now I can show you a live ACC in the capture the flag, because there's no real traffic going through it. It's really an exercise of how do we configure things. What the ACC does is that's the Application Control Center. And it groups things like these boxes are bigger and scarier the redder they get. And the bigger they are is relative to the amount of traffic that's going through that, right? But yeah, so you can just, I'll show you a better version of the ACC here. So remember I said, we do this great logging. Well, as a result of that, we can see your complete SaaS usage. So we log all that stuff, right? Jeff went to Box, he went to Jive, he went to Evernote, right? And through that tool, we can narrow the scope of your sanctioned apps and increase the scope of your unsanctioned ones, which is what you want to do. Oh, yep. And of course, top risk. Yeah, I didn't know Evernote was up there. Right. So enable apps safely and policies, right? So yeah, there's all sorts of ways, right? So remember how I said, maybe I didn't say this. So let's suppose one of your sanctioned apps is Facebook, right? Because, somebody's got to, manage your public Facebook account, right? So what we do is, since we can decrypt all that, we can look at all the child applications of the parent. So yeah, no, we don't allow Facebook messaging, right? But sure, Pam and Jeff and Bill, you manage our public Facebook. So you're the only ones that really need access to that application anyway. And that's how you really set up least trust, or excuse me, zero trust. Keep hitting the wrong button. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah, so here, right? Because you can see all those parent-child relationships, you can control the application, what you will and will not allow it to do. This is just a nice representation of a policy, the policy, they're the applications that you sanction, ones that you tolerate, right? Now, no, they didn't follow it out. There should also be in here, you follow it out more, there should be a decryption policy. Yeah, so yeah, you have to secure your encrypted traffic, right? You have to be able to look inside it. So there's certain things that you can't decrypt, and there's certain things that you really ought to, right? And things that you should simply block because they are dangerous, right? So self-signed certs is actually one of them, because everybody for a while there got so used to clicking yes when they should have clicked no to something, right? So you really want to block people from accessing sites that have untrusted certs. And yeah, certain things you just can't look inside. So if you can't look inside it, what do you have to do? You have to be able to identify it well, so that you know not to inadvertently look somewhere you shouldn't, right? And right, everything else you decrypt. So, oh, yeah. So here's all the security profiles that are being applied. We'll talk about security profiles, but each one of these has a different meaning. So wildfire. So that's our sandbox. It's unique in that it is our IP, our intellectual property. There is nothing in it that is commercially available. It's important because commercially available things are recognizable to malware these days. So the idea is that you're going to send us everything, and then we're going to tell you whether it's good or not. And if we've seen it before, there'll be a signature on your threat prevention license that will stop it cold. Now, it goes through and it sends we'll just say it sends that spreadsheet through static analysis, through dynamic analysis. So that's where I'm actually depacking it, right? And I'm actually looking at an executable and what's inside it. And then I'm going to do the dynamic analysis. All is this to say is that it's going to go through this process, right? And we have 85,000 customers supplying this. If you are, in fact, the first person on our network to catch that virus, right? You took one for the team, because we're going to tell everybody, right? But here's the ticket, right? We're going to identify you as the individual, and we're going to tell your SOC to isolate you. We'll talk about how this fits into other platforms. So all the logging goes into the Cortex data lake. Your name and the fact that you swallowed a piece of malware goes into the Cortex data lake. It immediately pops to the analyst's attention and quarantines you. What he does actually is he puts you in a device group that isolates you, but gives the SOC access to your laptop so that they can do their magic. And Prism Access, right? That's our security stack deployed globally. All those logs go into the Cortex data lake. And that's what we use for reporting and tools like Policy Optimizer, which we'll talk about. Okay, so we'll do this real fast. So malware infects my phone, and I go into the office with it and connect to the Wi-Fi. It's going to see my phone if it reaches out to a command and control server right away. Right. The other thing, if this has the wrong label on it, if we have a piece of endpoint software called XDR, used to be called traps. That too sends information into the data lake. So my phone, right, that has the XDR client, your Android phone, the things that has the most toxicity in it, right? It's also going to send a log to the Cortex data lake. And guess what? They're going to get correlated automatically in the data lake so that the SOC analyst who's looking at the data lake doesn't have to sift through a bunch of noise. They'll see it pop right to his attention so he can deal with it. Yeah, so we sort of cover all three pieces of this: the network, the endpoint, and the cloud. All of them are sending logs into the Cortex data lake so that the analyst has one place to look. And so, right, so expedition. So we have a bunch of tools sets, right? So if you have somebody else's firewall and you want to migrate it, right, Presidio can take expedition and feed the old firewall's configuration into expedition, and it'll pop out on the other side as a Palo Alto Networks configuration. You have not yet made it a next generation firewall configuration yet, though. You made it, you paid, you bought the Cadillac, right? But you haven't put it all together yet. And what that best practice assessment is there for is for you to see what needs to be done so that Presidio can give you a scope of work to get this thing to best practice, because that's essentially what you want to do. And Policy Optimizer, this is, hopefully this is all going out to everybody, this presentation. You'll be able to watch these videos. Policy Optimizer, what it essentially does is it continues to look at the logs. Every half hour, it summarizes what rules are allowing more applications than they should. And it gives you a way of then remediating that real well, real easily, very easily. Oh, look, yeah. Presidio, go, right? Take the customer through this transformation process, because ultimately everybody wants to get the best practice in zero trust. Right. So there's a level and a staging, right, that Presidio can take you through, right? So that first you understand what the problems are, then we start to reduce them, then we start to enforce best practice, and at the end of the day, right, you have an integrated solution. That's, you've flushed out a bunch of tools, hopefully along the way. And then, right, there actually is, you actually can then calculate ROI. So basically, right, these are a lot of the tools, right? You could potentially have, you know, one or more vendors supplying overlapping tools. That happens a lot. You could also have tools that label themselves one thing, and because of the diversity or because of the marketing value of that label, may not truly be what they say it is. And that's where Presidio is your trusted advisor, right? Because you don't always want to listen to this old man. You want to listen to some other people too. That'll help lead you down the right path. Oh, well. So, yeah, we got a lot of large, big, giant customers. So let's get to the game. Let's get to the game. Next steps, take a test drive. So we're doing this right now. That said, Presidio can do what we call a security lifecycle review, where they look at your existing firewall, right? mirror the data over into one of ours and pop out things like that SaaS usage report, a security lifecycle assessment, see what we could do if we work together a little bit.